My last suicide attempt was a gun to my head, and I pulled the trigger twice.
Adriene, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Aaron. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. My first and most important question is, how are you doing? Like, actually, for real, how are you doing?
Well, my daughter went back to school yesterday, so a little bit of empty nest, but honestly, I live a very blessed life. Um, there's, I have no complaints. And if you had shown the 15-year-old Adriene the life that I have now, like the 15-year-old Adriene would have called you a liar because she would never in a million years have thought that I could have the life that I have right now. And I am so blessed and I am so grateful. So actually doing really well. Um, but it's been a very hard road to get here. So, I did a lot of things, all the mistakes, the drugs, the alcohol. Um, it was a very long road to get here.
Hello, my friend. Before we jump straight into the episode, I would love to share the sponsors of this podcast. And the sponsors of this podcast are all the businesses that I've created that are really part of the ecosystem that run this whole thing. And at the top of that list is Patreon. Patreon is the home of our exclusive community where we do bonus episodes, live streams, Q&As, and merch discounts, and so much more. Patreon is the number one way to support this podcast and to support my mental health nonprofit called You Are Loved. Next, we have my clothing brand called Shop for Everybody. Every hat and every t-shirt you see me wear on every single episode of this podcast is from Shop for Everybody. It's the home of For the Dads, For the Moms, all Something for Everybody merch, and it's the home of all You Are Loved merch. So that's shopforeverybody.com. And the last thing is my sports performance brand called Champions Adjust. Again, if you see anything Champions Adjust related, it's all found at champsadjust.com. It also has its own podcast. We also do a sports show through Champions Adjust. And if you're looking for any mindset or mental skills classes, they can all be found at champsadjust.com. And so if you want to stay up to date on everything that we're doing here with all of the businesses that I'm involved in, please go to aaronmashbitz.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thank you. Now, on to the episode, completely uninterrupted and ad-free. Here we go.
Sorry, that was a long answer to a short question.
No, great. We love the long answers, all the long answers, please. But there are a couple, when I was looking at some notes about you, there are a couple words, like a phrase that really stood out to me, because this podcast is built on the idea of pain and curiosity. That's really why I do this podcast. And I saw these words, destruction and discovery, when talking about your story, hearing your story. And I just want to know what those words mean, and why you felt like it was destruction to discovery. Is that still the same sort of vibe you have now in your life, or what's those words mean?
Absolutely. So I think here's a good place for me to throw in the trigger warnings.
There we go.
And that will play into the destruction. So I have written a book. It's Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. It's the story of my life from early childhood to early 20s. And during this time, I was either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of another, emotional and physical abuse, mental illness, horrifically abusive foster care, homelessness, mental illness, bulimia, drug and alcohol addiction, pedophilia, death, incest, and suicide. So, I can relate to almost everybody who's been through a traumatic experience. I haven't been to war, um, but
Well,
I
thank God we don't have to
yeah.
we don't have to add that one to the list, you know? I think you got enough
Yeah.
on your fucking plate right now, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, I feel the same. So I've been through hell. I really have. And, um, my early 20s really I was making all the wrong decisions. I was self-medicating, just trying to numb myself because I was in so much pain. You had mentioned, your podcast, you focus on pain and curiosity. I was in so much pain, just so much agony that was doing drugs. I got addicted to cocaine, had to leave the country. I went and stayed with the host family that I lived with when I was a junior in high school, just to get away from that environment and to sober up. And then I replaced cocaine with alcohol. So some really strong self-medicating, self-sabotaging decisions. And suicide definitely played a significant role. I honestly can't tell you how many times I've attempted to kill myself because some of those attempts were during drunken blackouts. Like I
Yeah,
was in so much pain. I was just so damaged that my subconscious self even wanted to end my life. So, there's a story. I woke up in a hospital bed one morning, and my aunt, she was basically my second mother. I asked her, what was going on? Why was I in a hospital bed? I had no idea what was happening. And she said, well, you overdosed last night. And I swore to her. I said, no, I did not. I did not take a bottle of pills. I didn't. And even when the hospital showed me the toxicology report, I was like, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And then when I got in my car, people don't realize it's actually really hard to kill yourself. And if you take a bottle of pills all at once, your body will regurgitate them. So
mm,
it was when I got in my car and I saw the residue that I realized, oh shit, I did actually try to kill myself. And it was drunken blackout. I have no memory of it. I Apparently, when you mix Prozac and alcohol, you get functioning blackout. So I was walking, talking, functioning, but it was like the lights were on, but no one was home.
mm,
The video was playing, but there was no recording.
right.
So I have zero memory. That's why I was so adamant about saying no, I didn't try to kill myself because I had no recollection of it. But yeah, the
Can I pause you right there for a second and
yeah,
ask a question?
absolutely.
Well, not maybe not a question, but just maybe a point. It's like I think from an outsider's point of view, when you see someone who is doing sort of self-destructive behaviors, people tend to just immediately blame the person. Like, why would they do that? Why are they doing that? Why are they destroying their life? And we forget to sort of look a little bit deeper at the potential root of that behavior because, whether you're doing a self-destructive behavior as cocaine or you have a porn addiction or you eat too much or you're drinking too much, it always not always, I shouldn't say that. It most likely starts from something somewhere that you needed to do in order to survive something else. And now that you're surviving that something else, the thing that you needed to do to survive is killing you even more. And it's this whole sort of web. At least that's what I've learned from sort of the addiction specialists I've had on this podcast. And so, what give us some of the reasons to why you started to self-medicate and do drugs and try to destroy yourself because obviously a bunch of other stuff happened that you mentioned in the trigger warnings, but maybe what are those things specifically that went on?
Sure. So my mother was schizophrenic and physically abusive. She had me when she was 19. She did not have an occupation. my grandfather, so my grandparents, my grandfather was in the Navy, military Navy career, and they had 4 children. And um, he was schizophrenic, and nothing was done about it, no treatment. Of course, in the 50s, you just brush stuff like that under the rug. My mom had me at 19. People don't really know this, but schizophrenia doesn't develop like other mental illnesses. It develops later. So late teens, early 20s. So my mom had me at 19, right around the same time that her schizophrenia was really starting to develop. And for a while, I had my grandmother. So my grandfather moved the family from North Carolina to Texas and then abandoned the family for a mistress that he had had on the side for like 20 years. So that meant all 4 of the kids had to work to keep a roof over our head, and I stayed home with my grandmother while my mother worked. But that only worked as long as my grandmother was alive. She died
Mm.
when I was 7 years old, and we ended up bouncing. I mean, my mom didn't have a vocation, a profession. She wasn't a nurse or a teacher or anything. She had no real job skills. So it was always menial, minimum wage jobs and not enough to support an independent household. So we would bounce between 2 sets of aunts and uncles. And the cycle of abuse, every few months, I would get a beating, dog leash, shoes, hangers, um, yeah, pretty much anything that was available at hand. And my aunts and uncles would try to intervene with my mom, try to say, look, you can't do that to your kid. But it really was a generation, a cyclical generational trauma that was handed down. So I don't know for a fact, but I strongly suspect that my grandparents were physically abused. They physically abused my mom, her sister, and her 2 brothers. So it was a parenting technique. That was what how kids were disciplined, and
Mhm.
that just got passed down right along with the schizophrenia. So my grandfather, my mother, I have a cousin who's schizophrenic. And um and the craziest thing is that my family, being military, very stoic, just shove everything down, repress it, just move forward. They don't even believe in mental illness. So that just blows me away. They don't believe in it. So,
Like they just think it's a fake thing that doesn't exist?
yes. And
Interesting.
I just,
Even knowing everything about you? Interesting.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
sorry, continue.
No, no, absolutely. Where was I going?
Well, I was just yeah, the initial part of the question was just asking where this stuff came from, so that which why you started on your sort of self-medication, sort of destructive path.
Sure.
So you started
Okay.
with, being abused by your mother, and then I'm sure it goes on from there.
So at 5, I was very nearly sexually assaulted. My little girlfriend, Jane, was sexually assaulted. We were playing in the courtyard of the apartment complex my whole family was living in. So it was my grandmother, mother, and I shared one bed, and 3, my 2 uncles and an aunt shared the second bedroom. And one day we were playing, there was a man, he had a Labrador, we were running circles. So we were all 5. It was Jane, Mikey, and me. And he asked if we wanted to go with him while he took his dog for a walk in the woods. And so we didn't want to stop playing with the dog. We wanted to continue. And, while we were playing, my grandmother actually came out talked to Mr. Montgomery, the owner of the dog, and, like, checked on us, saw that we were well, waved, went back in the house, and Mr. Montgomery was holding Jane's hand, walking in front. There was a trail, in the woods near the complex, and they were ahead, and I was holding my 5-year-old boyfriend's hand, boyfriend at 5, and I came to these 2 stones that I would have had to step over, and that's when something inside of me just like alarm bells started ringing, and I freaked out, and I dropped Mikey's hand, and I ran back to my apartment, and I just screamed, "Janie's in the woods with Mr. Montgomery, Janie's in the woods." And my uncles ran out, and they didn't realize that I'd be in the living room, but my uncle came in carrying Janie across his arms, and she was just covered in blood.
Mm.
The man who sexually assaulted her used tree branches to violate her. So, and of course, we didn't talk about that. We didn't discuss that incident. And there were all kinds of feelings, feeling relieved that it didn't happen to me, knowing how close it came to happening to me. The survivor's guilt, that alone is enough to mess a
Mhm.
person up for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, couple years later, I saw a girl drowned, in an apartment complex swimming pool. I mean, the pool was packed. You couldn't go more than 2 feet without touching somebody. And a girl, so it in my family, they believe that if you eat food, you can't go in the water for 30 minutes. I don't know, it's some crazy wives' tale superstition. So I was sitting on the lounger just, waiting my time until I could get back in the pool. And, I'm in Houston. It's humid as hell. Summers are miserable. Everybody in the world was at the pool that day. And I noticed this girl just floating face down by the wall, and her hair was just floating on the surface of the water, and she wasn't moving. And it kinda clicked for me that, "Oh my god, something's wrong." And at the same time, my other uncle saw it as well, and he ran, grabbed her, tried doing CPR, but couldn't save her.
Mhm.
So, those 2 things, and it just my life was a cycle of, bad examples, bad parenting, generational trauma just being handed down, poverty just, being handed down. Um, my mother wanting to live independently. The only way that we could actually do that was for us to live in government housing. And to get government housing, you had to be homeless. So we actually lived in the Salvation Army homeless shelter summer after 4th grade.
Mm.
So, um, yeah, and that was brutal. They kicked us out every day from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. We had to leave the shelter, and we just and it was in downtown Houston, like with the skyscrapers.
Mm.
And it just, you know, it just was one thing after another, what you expect. My aunts and uncles, they were very distant. They didn't come visit us in the government housing. My mom had complete autonomy to abuse my brother and me. My brother came along when I was 9 years old. Um So, yeah, and we were abjectly poor. Food stamps, you can't buy paper goods, so, yeah, we used washcloths for toilet paper, and we used dish soap for shampoo and body wash, and washed our clothes in the bathtub, and because we couldn't afford the laundromat, and we were malnourished because we didn't have a car and there were no grocery stores around. There was a convenience store and like a little mini mart. But by the time we were taken into CPS custody, both my brother and I were malnourished because we lived on eggs, potatoes, and American sliced cheese.
Mm,
So, I don't wanna go through every story. I've
right.
covered quite a few, but it kept going, it was just one bad situation after another. Um, so yeah, um,
Yeah.
after so much pain, at some point, you have to turn it off, and like I said, I tried to kill myself when I was blackout drunk. That's how damaged and how hurt I was, that even my subconscious self wanted the pain to end.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard you speak about this, in terms of you eventually use schoolwork as an escape because you became a really good student. Talk to me about that a little bit, and then and then we'll maybe transition out of that. But because
sure.
your other escape that we mentioned was, alcohol. You've mentioned drugs, but why was school like a safe place for you, and how did you still maybe thrive in that environment?
Sure. So, school was the place where I knew what the rules were, I knew what the expectations were, and I excelled.
Mm,
I was always a brown noser, always the teacher's pet. I came in early every morning and, 5th grade, I was grading the tests and grading all the homework for my teachers. Um, Reading, when we were homeless, in the Salvation Army in downtown Houston, I read every book that they had. They had a Reader's Digest collection in addition to some other books, and I read voraciously. It was my escape route. It was my escape mechanism, reading. It took me out of my situation and I thrived academically. So much of my life was so bad that when I could be in an environment where I knew the rules and expectations and I would be praised and recognized like that supported me emotionally. It helped me survive what
mhm.
I was going through at home. So, and I the drinking and the drugs, that happened really during college, but I still graduated in 3 years, with honors and, um, yeah, it I also had some very special teachers in my
Yeah,
life, and they made a huge difference. I had one, Dr. Ann Weiss. She was my 3rd grade math teacher, and, she knew how poor we were living in the government apartment. We lived in Haverstock Hill Apartments, which if you Google that, Haverstock Hill, Houston, you'll read the reviews and people say, "Oh, there are only a few murders,"
sorry
they're only yeah, no, really,
sorry for
I'm
laughing.
dead serious. No, it's okay.
Only a
It's
few
crazy.
murderers. It's like
Exactly.
it's like a restaurant saying we only have a couple bad reviews. It's
We
like
only occasionally give people food poisoning.
yeah, we only occasionally people die here, that's it, that's all.
And for the first year, we were literally, I'm not exaggerating, I mean this literally, the only white family in the entire massive apartment complex. And that was incredibly isolating. And We were so poor. The second year that we were there, a mother and her 13-year-old daughter moved in, and my mom didn't really like the 13-year-old girl. She was emo, goth, listen to Metallica kind of girl. But my mom would let me go over there. So, um, school school was my salvation, and my mom, she was crazy. She had periods of insanity. She told me that Mick Jagger was her father as well as my father, that we shared a father, that my brother's father was David Bowie. Um, she and there were times where she would go in her room and not come out for days.
Yeah.
I basically raised my little brother. The only times I wasn't taking care of him was when I was at school. And yeah, it culminated with my mother found a man from a TV program. We had a little 12-inch black and white TV that sat on an egg crate. That's the furniture that we had in our living room. And then there was a mattress, not a box spring, just a mattress on the floor in my bedroom. And eventually, one of my aunts and uncle brought over a mattress for my mother. Like, that's the furniture that we had in the apartment. But my mom found this man on death row. He was a serial killer, rapist, and corresponded with him and decided that she wanted to take my brother and me and go live in San Francisco. And that was just the worst thing I could possibly imagine. I mean, my family wasn't very involved already, but at least they were there. I could pick up the phone if something really horrific was going on, and they would be there, or
Yeah.
I thought they would be there. They weren't. And um my mom took me to the Greyhound bus station. I refused to get on the bus. And the next week, last day of school, she caught me trying to call my aunt on the payphone, and she took me in her closet and gave me the worst beating of my life with a wooden dowel rod, the wooden thing that you hang your clothes on in the closet. And I didn't fight her when she took me to the Greyhound bus station, but I did run away that night. We were sleeping on the benches in the bus station in San Francisco. And I called my best friend's family, which having a friend was a new thing. Said I went to 13 schools by the time I graduated high school. So
Mhm.
I got very good at meeting people and always keeping the conversation on them, never on me. And her dad, my best friend's dad, actually flew out and like rescued me. Literally came and took me from San Francisco back to Houston. My brother was taken by the police because, I mean, we were sleeping on benches in the bus station because the homeless shelter where my mother had planned for us to stay, they were closed for renovation. So my brother got taken into CPS custody in San Francisco, and he was sent back to Houston. I lived with my best friend's family for a year, and they decided to keep my brother, and they ended up adopting him. And I'm grateful to them because they helped him. He had special needs, and they got rid of me. So I went to my aunt and uncle. It didn't work out because I was 13, severely emotionally damaged. I left them before they could get rid of me kind of situation. I ended up in foster care with, am I allowed to use a curse word?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Okay. Um, in my book, her name is the bitch from hell. And that's the only name that she has. And I refer to her as TBFH, the bitch from hell. And it was never physical or sexual abuse from her, but it, she, the abuse I endured from her was psychological and emotional. She treated us foster girls as if we were subhuman. And even as recently as a year ago, so I've my schizophrenic, physically abusive mother who basically beat me with a baseball bat, viciously, and it even threatened to kill me. I've never had a nightmare about my mother. But the bitch from hell, the foster mother, I've had nightmares and I wake up crying as recently as a year ago.
Wow.
And what she did to us, just that woman, I've, yeah, it's a whole situation.
Understood. Understood.
We weren't allowed to sit on the furniture. We had to sit on the floor like dogs. We weren't allowed to eat at their table. We had to eat at the counter or in the laundry room. We had an alarm on our door. We had separate dishes, separate utensils. There was only one full bathroom in the house, so it was a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom house. So the master bedroom was for the foster girls because there were between 4 and 7 of us at a time. The woman did it as a vocation. Her job skill was being a foster parent. That was her source of money. She had no other skills. And I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It's okay if the people are actually decent people trying to help children who, let's face it, if you're coming from any kind of abusive situation, they're going to be damaged
Hmm.
and they're going to need help. And that's my soapbox that we can cover later. But the last foster girl to take a shower in the shower, and bear in mind, we were not allowed to use their toilet in the one full bathroom. So the master bedroom had a half bath, so a toilet and a sink. And we were only allowed to use the toilet in the half bath, never use their toilet. So basically, everything possible to say that they were better than us, they were superior to us, the last foster girl to take a shower had to clean the tub with Comet with a bleach cleanser before anyone in her family would use it.
Wow.
And the excuse, the TBFH, the bitch from hell, told the caseworker was because she had a 3-year-old granddaughter and she wanted the tub cleaned for her granddaughter. But it didn't matter who from her family was going to use it. They would not use the tub until after it had been bleached by one of the foster girls, the last foster girl to use it.
Mm.
So, I mean, some of the things, a couple of quotes that really sum up how we were treated. The woman next door, Helen, she had worked in the prison system for 30 years. She retired, and she told police, one day they were called some incident, and Helen said she treats those girls worse than prisoners are treated. Prisoners
Sheesh.
are treated better than how she treats them. And I was trying on a swimsuit and I came out to show the bitch from hell. And she looked me up and down and said, "Your thighs are fat. I'm surprised you haven't started throwing up to lose weight."
Mm.
And that started a 35-year battle with bulimia for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
struggle with it to this day. And the last quote, um, when I was diagnosed officially with major depressive disorder, I was placed on medication. And I came back to her house. I took my razor apart and I cut my wrists. And the bitch from hell looked at it and she said, "You didn't even do it right. You're supposed to cut along the vein, not across."
Makes me sick. A
Yeah.
little- uh,
Sorry, I know that was a lot. I kinda just did a whole thing.
No, I mean, thank you for sharing, 1. Um, Thank you for still being here. We're glad you're still here.
By
Um,
the grace of God.
yeah, something,
My last suicide attempt was a gun to my head, and I pulled the trigger twice.
when was that?
Think I was 23 years old,
Mm,
so 2002, 2001, somewhere around there.
yeah.
And I had fired a test shot and in a field, so I knew the gun worked. And I looked at it, and the safety had engaged by like a hair's breadth, less than a millimeter. And I like to say that, that night I had an epiphany. I knew that I was put on this planet to do something and that I wasn't going to be released until I had achieved whatever that purpose was. And I believe that to this day. Now, I didn't get a memo saying like what it was I was supposed to do. That would have been helpful, but
Mhm,
um, I hope I'm doing it with my book and sharing my story. I hope that my reason for doing all of this is for everybody who's going through shit right now. And I want I want them to look at me. I want them to read my book and say if she can go through all of that and come out the other side and be happy and have healthy relationships and be functioning and doing well. If she can go through all that and make it, so can I. I want to be that example. Not that I'm perfect, not that I don't have my hard days, not that, you know, everything's, shiny with a bow, but I do have a damn good life and I'm blessed and I'm grateful. But I know there are people who feel so alone. I felt it myself. Now, I should say my book is not for kids. It's not for teenagers. It has explicit content. So, um, but I feel for the kids in foster care, and that's something that with my book, I I hope my book gets used in classrooms for people who want to be social workers or counselors or therapists because I have the firsthand account of all the abuse. That's not new. But what I also have are all of my children's protective services case records, my therapist notes, my psychiatric evaluations, letters, everything. I have every document that was ever written about me from CPS. So I have the firsthand account, and then I have the clinical account. And I can give both of those to people studying and people who want to try to help kids who were like me.
mhm.
So,
Yeah, because that's really important, if you work with young people, is the ability to relate to them on a very serious level. This is nothing like your situation, obviously, but I coach baseball and I coach young athletes, and the reason why I can connect to them rather than like their mom telling them they need to do something is because I'm a baseball guy and they're a baseball
mhm,
player. So when I'm saying, hey, we should probably, clean up our own stuff. We should get our stuff together for our game. We should take our own bag to the car, not our mom. And their mom tells me, hey, I've been telling him to do that for fucking 6 weeks. And you got him to do that for one game. It's like, well, because I'm a guy he can super relate to. And if I'm gonna do it and I'm a role model to him, then he's definitely gonna do it. And that's a very sort of mild example of a more serious case, which could be someone who's going through the same stuff you went to in foster care. And if I have a social worker who's well versed, maybe hasn't personally experienced it, because you don't want people to personally experience that. That would be horrible.
mhm,
But they're at least versed in a narrative that they can understand through that perspective of someone who did go through it. Now I can relate to little Jimmy who's 11 and just got the shit kicked out of him by the seventh foster dad. And like, okay, I can relate on some sort of level here that may
yeah,
help him feel like he's not worthless or he's not broken, because he certainly is not. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think that's super
exactly.
important. And so anyone who puts out their life for people to judge, especially when it's as challenging as yours, is the only way we come together as people, is the only way human beings come together is through story sharing. That's why movies and TV shows people relate to, even though they're
Yeah,
fake, right? Some of the best ones are I'm relating to you on the realest possible level. And then maybe it
right.
encourages you to go have that conversation with your whatever, right? In the same way a great book does. And so it is extremely valuable and important for anyone to do that, especially for someone who's been through stuff as you. So I would say that you've already probably accomplished the goal you set out to do by impacting one life. So kudos on that regard for doing
Thank
that.
you.
Sure.
I sent my manuscript to my psychiatrist, and she asked me if her intern could read it. And I said yes. And the feedback I got from the intern was that it really helped her understand firsthand what kids like me were going through, and that it even affected her career choice, the path that she went down. And then my psychiatrist had a second intern, and I got the same feedback. So I have 2 focuses, the people who are struggling, and then the people who are gonna try to help those people struggling, the caseworkers, the social workers, the CPS.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of your psychiatrist, she is this the one that had the huge impact on your life? The one that's still your psychiatrist, um, or is this a different person?
Well, my psychiatrist, she was amazing. I don't know if she had a huge impact on my life. I was with her from, like, 2008 until this past summer because she retired.
Mm,
Like, I moved to Houston. I at 35, I got rheumatoid arthritis. I'm medically retired, and she kept me on as a patient, and we did phone appointments. I was the only client that she did that with. And of course this was pre-COVID, before it was a normal thing to do a phone appointment. And she helped me, and you know for 20 years I was told that I was bipolar. That was my diagnosis. And she said to me one day, she said, "You're not bipolar. You have severe PTSD." And I was like, "Oh my God, she is so right. That's that's it. That makes sense." So,
mm. Could you talk more about the difference potentially between those two things and why that was like important for you?
well, the the treatment plan, the understanding that it was a better explanation. It was something that I understood more.
Mm,
The bipolar, I didn't really fit the manic highs as well. I was more of the depressive. I mean, I have a psychiatric evaluation done when I was 13 years old, and I was diagnosed with dysthymia, which is the precursor to major depressive disorder. It's like I had the baby version of depression at 13. So, it just it gave me a different perspective, and, um, it also taught me to well, it helped reinforce the fact that I don't live my labels.
mm,
Um, I if even when I was diagnosed as bipolar, fine, it's a label. I'm not gonna let it dictate my life. I'm not gonna let it control everything about me. I think that's a mistake that people make. They buy into their label. And I've seen it with sexuality, I've seen it medically, where like like my daughter, for example, she has severe ADHD, and she let it dictate her life. She used it as an excuse, as a crutch, just like I used my traumas, for a decade to excuse truly reprehensible behavior. So, not living your labels it's freeing, um, and it also forces you to take accountability to say, "No, I can do more than what this label is limiting me to."
Yeah, I definitely think that situation is like a both and situation. It's like really nice to finally understand maybe the reason why you feel the way you do, or the reason why some of your behaviors are displayed in the way they are. And that's a good thing. And then the same token, that can't be everything that you are. You're not just a person who is depressed, right? You are a person experiencing depression, or someone who has bipolar. You're also someone who's a son, brother, sister, friend, worker, whatever the case may be, that sort of also defines your life. But it can be really important for people in their stage to like, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep having these highs and lows? What's happening here? Is this this? Is this me? Am I broken? Am I the worst? No, you have this thing. And now this thing is just a part of you. Now, how can you explore other different parts of yourself to become that sort of fully embodied version of you? So I do think it's a both and situation, at least for some people. I've also talked to some people who, you know, didn't find their diagnoses to be very freeing. They found it more constricting, and they had to work with that idea as well. I've also talked to people who found it super freeing to know, oh shit, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. This is cool to know this. And now I can go and flourish even more than I was before. And so it just yeah, I mean, it goes back to sort of the idea of mental health being, quite a complex and nuanced thing based on personal experiences and how you're raised and all that type of stuff, as you're expressing here with your own story. And so yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that's important as well.
And what you mentioned about feeling constricted by your label, that's what I would like to encourage people to broaden their horizons, to not let it dictate what they can and cannot do. That's I know when I was diagnosed at 15, was the first time I was put on meds, and that's when I went back to the house and took my razor apart and cut my wrists. Um, I thought that I was defective, that I
Mm,
was damaged goods, that I couldn't be saved, and I thought that I wanted to die. And um I am now I make the analogy that a diabetic has to take insulin. Their body does not produce insulin, so they have to give insulin to their body. For a person with clinical depression, the brain does not make the chemicals, the hormones, to be happy. And so the medication that you take is supplementing what your brain isn't supplying. You're giving your body what your brain needs to be happy. And would anyone ever dog or criticize a diabetic for taking insulin? No, of course not. And it's the exact same thing with mental health and medication. I've been so traumatized by everything that I've lived through. My brain just does not produce those chemicals. I will be on medication for the rest of my life. That's just my brain itself is physically damaged from the trauma. So I like to get that analogy out there because people, beyond just the label, the diagnosis, the stigmas around needing medication. People need to understand that it's okay. It's a medical condition, not something to feel ashamed of.
yeah. I mean, I know, just watching my sister go through what she went through. My sister, died by suicide in 2018. and she had major depressive disorder. She had bipolar disorder. As you mentioned with your mother, my sister also developed schizophrenia later in her life, and
Mm.
towards the tail end of her life, it was very, very, very challenging. Um, and medication, the right medication that she got on eventually, definitely 100% extended her life. Now,
Wow.
of course, I'm not God by any means, so I don't know when people are predetermined to live or not live, or how long we have on this earth. But just because she got on the right sort of meds, she just a ballpark number here, probably lived 4 or 5 more years, and then towards the tail end of her life, she didn't want to take the medication anymore. It was making her feel weird, and that was probably all this other stuff going on, and then she passed away. But there was a certain point in there where she was really thriving as a human being,
Mm.
despite all of her challenges, not unlike yourself, graduated from college, getting a job as an engineer, and then so there's still possibilities to thrive, as you talk about as well, even if you're dealing with these really, really hard things. And so medication can be an ingredient in that puzzle, or that
Mhm.
pie, to help you flourish even with some of the things you have going on. And so
It's a
I
tool in a
personally, yeah,
toolbox.
that's right. I personally don't think that if you go to the doctor, it shouldn't be the first thing that they prescribe to you, um,
Right.
unless it's like the most traumatic situation of all time, and there's like nothing's gonna like similar to like your situation. But if you're like a person in the world who just is like not feeling well for a couple weeks, I don't think you should immediately go on a medication. I think there should be other life skills, eating well, moving well, sleeping well, thinking well, that you should sort of get prescribed first.
Exercise. Yeah.
Yes, and then maybe if that doesn't work, you found some other things, you've tweaked some stuff, you've had some conversations. Okay, now nothing's getting better. Let's potentially try some medication here. Um, and that's just a generalization of everything. Of course, I don't know people's certain situations, but that's just what I think, and what I've seen in regards to that. But doctors, or let's not say doctors, the people who produce the pills want to make money. So they're said, give out those fucking pills, but again, also saying that they work well for a lot of people as well too. So, but there is I think, an ulterior motive to make money from that, because, well, everyone wants to make money, but it is what it is.
I have my own opinions about healthcare and the for-profit industry, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm sure.
I lived in Germany when a year when I was in high school. I went back in college. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't tread I have to tread lightly on this topic. My husband's in the health insurance industry, so
Ah, okay, okay. I won't say too much more then. All right, so let's now we gotten a really clear picture of your story. Obviously, not everything, but a good clear picture. When did, let's say, your life feel like your life was turning around, or was heading in the right direction, or an upward direction? Was there a moment? Was there a time? Was there a person?
yes.
Talk to us about that.
N November 8th, 2005.
That's a fucking great
So
day.
I can tell you the exact date that my life changed. So, I got pregnant. My daughter's father was, from England. He was over on vacation. We met. Anyone can come here for 3 months, or from England for 3 months, no visa required. He had to go back home, came back over for 2 weeks, and we got married. I cracked the joke, not really joking. I said, "Hey, find yourself a cute American girl and get married so you can stay here." And, he said, "So, do you wanna?" And I was like, "Sure, okay." That was the marriage proposal. So, just to be abundantly clear, we got married for a green card, and then the weekend we got married, we conceived. So, she was not in my plan. I figured if it didn't work out, because I knew the guy like 4 months before we got married, I was like, "Well, we'll get divorced, no problem." Well, we got pregnant, and I told him that I didn't think I could have kids. Like, I had been in relationships for years and never had a pregnant, like, I didn't think I could.
Mm.
And, so I say that we got a wedding present. Our wedding present was our daughter, and she was born August 7th, 2005. And I immediately went back to drinking. I was completely overwhelmed. I didn't have a real career. In fact, near the end of my maternity leave, I found out that my job was going away. And of course, my daughter's dad, he didn't have he was a professionally trained opera singer who worked as a line chef in one of the really nice restaurants in Manchester, England. So he didn't really have a career, and here we are with this baby, and I'm drinking, and his parents come over when she's born, and I tell him to just take her, go back with his parents, raise her, that I can't do it. And I spend from August 7th through November 7th saying, just raise her. I can't do it. And in my second psych eval, there's a quote that says, I'm terrified of having children because I'm scared that I will do to them what my mother did to me.
Mhm.
But on November 8th, I woke up. I was hungover. I had fallen asleep on the bath mat the fuzzy bath mat in the bathroom. That's where I woke up. And that was the day that I decided that I was going to raise my daughter and I was going to give her a childhood that I did not get. And she is the reason I got my shit together. November 8th, 2005 is my sobriety date. Um, and I ended up becoming a personal banker and then a financial advisor and then a certified financial planner and senior financial advisor. Just um, did well, became a respectable person and able to take care of my daughter and myself. I became independent. I did not need a man to take care of me anymore. Now, of course, I was married to her father, um, and that had, you know, that's a whole other story. Um, but I became a role model
Mhm.
and someone that I felt like my daughter could be proud of and look up to. And I call her my angel. I believe God gave her to me because I needed her, and without her, I think I'd be dead.
Mm. Well, God bless
So,
her and God bless the kids. I just had my son right now is about to be 4 months old.
oh,
Um,
congratulations. Are you getting any sleep?
Pretty good, pretty good. Good enough.
Nice.
I feel well rested. My wife will say that she's not well rested, but I think she's getting enough too. We're fine. We're surviving. But it's beautiful, man. It's a fucking blessing. I've loved quite a few things in my life. I have the greatest parents in the world. I love my wife, but you can never love something like your child. Like you see
And
that little thing for the first time.
there's no way to explain it to people who aren't parents.
Yeah.
It's something biological, physiological, like that bond, there's nothing you won't do for your child.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I
So
interrupted you.
no, totally. You're on, you're the guest. But meaning I say that,
Congratulations.
thank you. I say that because like it makes sense as to why your daughter was the reason why, quote unquote, you got your shit together. And so that's amazing. And then so the next step after that is like what led you to begin writing the book?
So my daughter went off to college. Um, my RA, I'm not better, but it kind of got a little bit better. And so the story is, when I was 20 years old, I got a letter from Children's Protective Services saying if I wanted my file, that I needed to request it, otherwise it was going to be discarded. And so I filled out the form and I got this giant box, just this huge box with these two huge stacks of paper. And I shoved it under a couch. I shoved it in the back of the closet. Every couple years, I would try to go through it. and I just couldn't. It
Mm,
just too many memories. It just brought everything up. And I was basically a married single mother. Her dad was an over the road truck driver, and then he worked in the oil field. Like I did a lot of single parenting, even though we were married. And I I finally, at 40 years old, I sat down and started going through my papers, every document that had ever been written about me. And I got very angry about the bitch from hell. And
mm,
I there were two things. I wanted to make sure that she never had access to another foster kid, and I actually felt and feel intense guilt for not making sure of that sooner. Like when
mm.
I was 18, I should have written to Texas, CPS, and let them know what she did. Um, and I got very angry and I wanted her punished. I wanted some sort of repercussion. And I reached out to like 50 lawyers, and I had friends who knew people, judges, and everyone basically just said, there's a 2-year statute of limitations. You can report her, make sure she doesn't have a license in another county, which I did. But you can't really do anything. So I was very, very angry over that. And then the other thing I alluded to earlier, where I said I went to 13 schools by 12th grade. So, and I got very good at meeting people and keeping the conversation on them. And the rare times when I would open up about my life and my story, from about the age of 16 on, I got the same response. You should write a book. You should
Mm,
write a book. I've been told that since I was 16 years old. So between my anger, my need for justice, if you will, um, just to put that out there, yeah, I started writing, and it's taken me 5 years to write the book. Because I was like expert level at repressing memories and emotions, and I would put each trauma in a box on a metaphorical shelf behind a metaphorical door, and they were just stacked up. And to write the book, I had to take each one out and look at it and feel it and live it. And I don't not everybody knows, but the brain can't really differentiate between a trauma happening in real life and a trauma that you're just remembering. The brain reacts the same way. So, writing this book has been fucking hell.
mm.
It's been awful. Um, but also incredibly cathartic because I have come to terms. The only person I haven't been able to reconcile really is the bitch from hell, and I want to. I think that one day I will be able to forgive her, and I wanna do it for me, not for her, not because I care about, her being forgiven. I wanna be able to let go of the pain that I still hold on to from it,
Yeah,
and I
certainly.
I do. I still have pain from it.
Makes
So,
sense. She was horrible.
yeah, she worse than a schizophrenic, physically abusive mother who beat me with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took you 5
So,
years to write the book. Now the book is about to be out into the world.
March
Um,
17th.
March 17th out into the world. How are you feeling about, putting this extremely vulnerable piece out into the world for people to see, read, hear, act upon, all this type of stuff?
You want the truly honest answer?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Fucking terrified. Absolutely fucking terrified.
Yeah, as I
Um,
think as you should be though, right? If yeah, I mean, it's your
I
baby,
w
it's your life.
well, I wrote with complete honesty. I hired beta readers when I was about halfway through. And I got feedback that said, "Adrian, there are times where you sound like the villain. Some of the things you did and said, it doesn't really shine a very positive light on you." And I said, "That's because I wasn't a very good person. I
Mhm.
was making bad decisions. I was doing hurtful things, sometimes willfully, knowingly. Even with everything we've covered today, there's a big bombshell in the book that I'm not going to give away.
Great.
Um, but yeah, I'm terrified, and I know that people are going to judge me and the decisions that I made, and I've told my husband that he's in charge of reading, like, the reviews and stuff, like, so I've had editorial reviews. I've had my book professionally reviewed by, like, 6 different companies, including Kirkus, and got, like, their verdict was "Get it, buy the book," so that's great. And, I've only had 1, like, mediocre review. The rest have been all, 5 stars, 4-star here and there.
Mhm.
So I've gotten very good reviews, but I know there are people out there that are gonna judge me for the things that I did and, that I haven't shared with you. And it's gonna be harsh.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be bad, and it's gonna be people who don't understand what I went through and the survival techniques that I learned to get through my life. I'm incredibly manipulative, coercive. And I recognize these things about myself. These are things that I've worked on and created. I didn't have role models so that I could mirror healthy communication and healthy relationships. I didn't have that growing up. So
Mhm.
I've had to learn all of these things on my own and many times the hard way.
Right.
So, there's gonna be I think a lot of judgment, because I did some very bad things. And I just hope that they understand. I did, around the time I started going through my CPS case files, I did so I'm sober. I only do drugs with my name on them. Um, yeah, that's what I say. Um, I don't do AA or anything, but around the time I started going through my files, I started reaching out to people that I had hurt or left in the past and just let them know that I was sorry for hurting them. I basically made amends
Right.
with as many people as I could. One person, I spoke to a friend of his, and he said he's in a really bad place, and I said, I'll leave it up to you if you want to pass along my sentiment or not. If it's going to do him more harm for me to be brought back up in his life, then just keep me out of it. But I am sorry for the pain that I've caused and the manipulation and using people. Um, it's it's how I survived my childhood, was, you know, taking care of myself and doing whatever was necessary,
Yeah.
and, it's something that I've had to unlearn, and I think I've done a pretty good job of it. I
Mhm.
try really hard, I say I was not a good person the first half of my life, and I'm trying to make up for that the second half of my life.
Yeah. Well, I applaud uh your courage, let's say. And you know, no no perfect person has ever existed on the face of the earth, and most people who project and judge are just failing to see some of the stuff that they haven't dealt with in their own life, from someone who puts a lot of stuff out on the internet. And for a long time, some of that stuff wasn't very good. And it just is what it is. No matter what you put out into the world, people are going to have their reactions to it. And I say, if you feel aligned to what you produced and it's part of your value system and it means something to you, then it needs to be out into the world. And I'm sure you feel the same about your work, because at least I do. I think that the stuff you've written is extremely important. And so, however it's received, it is what it is. There's nothing you could do about it now. You wrote it, um, you lived it, and now you're in your sort of redemption arc, let's say. Uh, what I was thinking was like, maybe somebody will pick your book up and they'll make it a TV show. What a fucking wild TV show that would be. 8 seasons or 8 episodes, excuse me.
I've I've heard that as well. My husband has said that he could easily see that. I don't see it. I don't know how you would turn it, but thank you. That's very, very kind. But yeah,
Okay, well,
it'd be
if it
interesting.
if it does happen, you have to come back on the show and tell me that I was right.
Okay. I can absolutely do that. I'll give you credit.
It'll just be like a 30-second episode because I just want that clip only. Um,
Love
but
it.
as we wrap up this conversation, is there anything you want to end on, maybe that I failed to ask you, that you want to touch on, that seems important before we sort of jet off into the sunset?
Yeah. Anyone out there, especially the teens, the people my book is not for, I just want to speak to them for a second and say, in a very few short years, you're going to be making decisions for your life right now. You know, you're not in charge. You don't have that authority. But in the blink of an eye, in a few short years, you are going to be in the position to start making decisions for yourself. And you're going to be deciding the life that you have. The decisions you make today decide the life that you have tomorrow. So if you self-medicate, if you're doing the drugs, if you're drinking, if you're, just having promiscuous relationships, um, that you're going to perpetuate your trauma, and you're not going to be on a healthy road. And you have more control, even now, and even while you're younger, you have control over how you approach your situation, your mindset, what you bring to it, your attitude. And in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be making those decisions, and make good decisions, because you're in charge at that point.
Rock
So
on. Love that. Great. Well, Adrienne, thank you very much for the conversation. Thank you for writing the book. And yeah, thanks for being you.
thank you, Aaron. Can I do a 30-second plug for the book and
Of
my
course you can.
socials?
Yeah, of course, of
Awesome.
course.
So, Unbroken Caldwell. You can actually see my CPS case files, my psychiatric evaluations, letters that I wrote to my caseworker from when I was in Germany, letter I wrote to her supervisor because she didn't write me back. Unbroken Caldwell, you can get a ton of information. I'm on Insta, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Unbroken Caldwell. And yeah, the book will be out, Unbroken: Life Outside the Lines, March 17th. So
Fantastic. Well, if you go into the description below, the link will be there and it'll take you right to the website. But
awesome.
thank you again, Adrienne.
Aaron, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a privilege to be here to share my story with your audience, with you. And yeah, this has been really special.
God bless.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.